The massive research ship Horizon drifted silently through the violet clouds of HE 2187. Inside the observation deck, Dr. James Walker pressed his hand against the cold glass, his eyes fixed on the swirling storms below. 20 years of studying alien life hadn't prepared him for what they'd discovered on this distant world. "There's another one," shouted Tom from the tracking station, coming in fast from the southeast. The crew rushed to the windows as a massive shape emerged from the clouds. It moved like smoke in the wind, its body stretching nearly 100 meters from head to tail. Lightning crackled along its scaled sides, and its 6 wings cut through the storm clouds like knives through silk. James couldn't help but smile. These creatures, these storm lords, as the crew had started calling them, were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They didn't just fly through the storms, they control them. "That's the third one today," said Captain Rogers, walking onto the deck with a tablet in his hand. The Galactic Council's reports weren't exaggerating. These beings own this planet. James nodded, remembering the briefing files. 3 different alien species had tried to establish mining colonies on HC 2187. All 3 attempts had ended in disaster. The Storm Lords had destroyed their equipment, torn apart their ships, and forced them to evacuate. But something about these creatures bothered James. In all the footage he'd studied, their attacks didn't seem random. There was a pattern, a purpose. It reminded him of something he'd seen before. A loud bang shook the ship, making everyone jump. Outside, the Storm Lord had moved closer, its massive head now level with the observation deck. Its eyes were like swirling pools of purple energy, and arcs of electricity danced between its horns. "Shields at maximum," Captain Rogers ordered, but James held up his hand. "Wake," he said, moving closer to the window. "Look at its posture, the way it's holding its wings. The head tilt." He pulled up old files on his tablet, fingers flying across the screen. "There. See this?" He showed them footage from Earth, a lion approaching a vehicle in a safari park. The big cat's body language, the way it circled and examined the intruder in its territory, was remarkably similar. "It's not attacking," James explained, excitement building in his voice. "It's assessing us, just like Earth's apex predators do." The Storm Lord outside tilted its head, examining the ship with one giant eye. Lightning flickered across its scales, but it made no aggressive moves. "The other aliens tried to drive them away with weapons," James continued. "But look how it's behaving. This isn't mindless aggression. These creatures are intelligent, social predators, just like the ones our ancestors faced on Earth." Tom laughed nervously. "Are you comparing these space dragons to Earth animals?" "Why not?" James turned to Captain Rogers. "Humans have a unique history. We're the only species in the Galactic Council who evolved alongside dangerous predators and learned to work with them. Dogs were wolves once. Horses were wild creatures that could kill with a single kick. But we didn't just survive alongside them. We formed partnerships." The Storm Lord outside moved closer, its massive eye filling the window. Small arcs of electricity reached out from its scales, making the ship's sensors buzz. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "it's generating some kind of electromagnetic field. But it's not weapon strength. It's more like it's scanning us." James watched in fascination as the creature circled the ship, its movements becoming more curious than threatening. "Captain," he said, "I think I know why all those other aliens failed. They tried to conquer this world with technology and force. But maybe what we need here is something much older, something humanity remembers in its bones." "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" James smiled as he watched the magnificent creature glide around their ship. "I'm suggesting we do what humans do best. Let's try to understand them. Not as monsters to be fought, but as creatures we can work with. After all, if our ancestors could turn wolves into dogs and aurochs into cattle, who's to say we can't work with these storm lords?" The creature outside let out a sound like rolling thunder, and for a moment, the clouds around the ship took on beautiful shapes, swirling in impossible patterns. It wasn't a threat display, it was a demonstration. "Look at that," James whispered. "They're not just beasts. They're intelligent, social creatures with their own culture. And if humanity's history teaches us anything, it's that we're really good at making friends with scary animals." The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in rising tiers, all focusing their attention on Captain Emma Stone as she stood at the speaking platform. Behind her, a massive screen showed footage of the Storm Lords in action. "The human proposal is madness," growled Representative Cax, his crystalline body gleaming under the chamber's lights. "We lost 30 ships trying to establish a colony on HC 2187. The creatures cannot be reasoned with." Emma waited patiently as the chamber filled with sounds of agreement. She glanced at Dr. James Walker, who sat nearby, frantically taking notes as he studied the aliens' footage of failed attempts to settle the planet. "With all due respect," Emma said, her voice clear and steady, "I believe you're missing something important in your own footage." She gestured to the technician, and the main screen began playing clips of Storm Lord attacks. "Look closely at this pattern of behavior." The room fell silent as they watched. In each clip, the Storm Lords moved in coordinated groups, using their electromagnetic powers to disable ships and equipment. "These aren't random attacks," Emma continued. "See how they target power sources first, how they move in formation, how they protect their younger members." She pointed to specific moments in the footage. "These creatures aren't mindless beasts. They're protecting their territory using advanced tactics." A tall, ethereal being floated forward. "We know they are intelligent, Captain Stone. That makes them more dangerous, not less. Our most advanced communication attempts failed." James stood up, unable to contain himself any longer. "Because you tried to communicate like advanced beings." He walked to join Emma at the platform. "Sorry, Captain," he whispered, then addressed the council. "Every species here evolved past their primitive stages before encountering dangerous predators. But humans, we grew up with them." He pulled up images from Earth's history, ancient cave paintings showing humans hunting alongside wolves, Egyptian hieroglyphs depicting domesticated cats, old photographs of people working with horses. "We learned to understand body language, territory marking, social hierarchies," James explained, "not through technology, but through thousands of years of direct experience. And look at this." He split the screen, showing a Storm Lord's threatening display next to a lion's warning posture. The similarities are striking. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Emma stepped forward again. "We're not asking for military support or advanced technology. We're requesting permission to attempt a different approach, the human approach." Representative Cax's crystalline form flickered with doubt. "And what exactly is this human approach?" "We start small. We observe. We learn their social structures, their communication methods, their habits, just like our ancestors did with Earth's predators." Emma's voice grew passionate. "We don't try to dominate them with technology. We try to understand them." The ethereal being drifted closer. "You would risk human lives on this primitive method." "We've already begun preliminary studies," James cut in. "The Storm Lord that approached our ship, it was curious. It scanned us, yes, but it also displayed complex social behaviors. If we can understand those behaviors." "Impossible," shouted someone from the upper tiers. "The electromagnetic pulses they generate can disable our most advanced ships." Emma smiled. "Which is exactly why we're not relying on advanced ships. We're proposing a small ground team, using minimal technology. We'll build trust gradually, just like we did with wolves thousands of years ago." The council chamber filled with a mix of laughter and concerned murmurs. Representative Cax raised his crystalline arms for silence. "You truly believe you can succeed where our most advanced civilizations failed, by being more primitive?" "No," Emma replied firmly. We believe we can succeed because we never forgot what we learned during our primitive days. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The council leaders huddled together, their voices a quiet buzz of discussion. Finally, the ethereal being turned back to them. Your species continues to baffle us, humans. Your proposal is unusual, but given our own failures, we cannot reasonably deny you the attempt. James and Emma shared a quick smile. They had their chance. Now they just had to prove that humanity's primitive experience with dangerous creatures was exactly what they needed to unlock the mysteries of the Storm Lords. As they left the chamber, James pulled up more footage of the Storm Lords on his tablet. You know they still think we're crazy, right? Emma laughed. Good. Being underestimated just might be our greatest advantage. The training room on the horizon hummed with activity as Dr. James Walker played another video clip. On the screen, a woman worked with a wild horse, her movements slow and deliberate. Around him sat his chosen team, 5 other humans who had spent their lives understanding Earth's most dangerous creatures. Notice how she never makes direct eye contact, James pointed out. She respects the horse's space while gradually getting closer. He switched to another clip, this time showing footage of the Storm Lords. Now watch this behavior. Similar wariness about direct eye contact. Similar awareness of personal space. Mary, who had spent 20 years rehabilitating big cats, raised her hand. The way they curved their bodies during approach, it's almost identical to how tigers signal non-aggressive intent. Exactly. James pulled up a split-screen comparison. These beings might be able to control electromagnetic fields and fly through space, but their social behaviors follow patterns we understand. They're territorial apex predators, just operating on a much larger scale. Outside the window, HC 2187's violet clouds swirled beneath them. They had spent 3 weeks in orbit, studying and planning. While other alien species had rushed in with technology and weapons, the human team was taking their time. What about the electromagnetic pulses? Asked Ben, the team's field specialist. All our observation equipment will be minimal. Emma cut in, entering the room. We're not bringing any energy weapons, no force fields, nothing that could be seen as threatening. She laid out their gear on the central table. Simple protective suits, basic tools, and old-style optical cameras that wouldn't be affected by electromagnetic interference. The aliens think we're under-equipped, James said, smiling. But that's the point. Every piece of advanced technology is just another barrier between us and them. Our ancestors didn't have force fields when they first approached wolves. They had patience, observation, and respect. The team spent hours studying historical taming techniques from Earth's past. They looked at how different cultures had approached dangerous animals, from ancient Egyptian cat domestication to modern elephant training in Asia. We're not trying to domesticate them, James reminded everyone. We're trying to establish a mutual understanding, like our ancestors did with wolves before they became dogs. That evening, as the team prepared their landing site, Tom from the bridge called down. You might want to see this, Doc. The team rushed to the observation deck. Below, a group of Storm Lords was performing what looked like an elaborate aerial dance. Lightning arced between them as they moved in perfect sync. Social bonding, Mary whispered, just like how big cats play to reinforce pack bonds. James nodded, taking notes frantically. They're not just showing off their power. They're communicating, maintaining social ties. He turned to Emma. We need to set up our base near one of their regular gathering spots. Not too close, we don't want to threaten them, but close enough to be noticed. The next morning, as they loaded their simple equipment into the shuttle, the alien observation team watched with obvious concern. You're really going down there with just basic suits and cameras? One of them asked. No defense systems. Emma secured the last crate. The best defense is understanding. We're not going as conquerors or even as scientists. We're going as students. The landing site they chose was a flat plain near a mountain range where the storm lords often gathered. As they set up their small prefab shelters, James watched the creatures soaring overhead, their massive forms casting shadows through the violet clouds. "Remember," he told the team as they finished setting up, "we're in their territory now. Everything we do sends a message. Move slowly. No sudden gestures. Respect their space. We're going to do something no other species has managed. We're going to learn their language. Not their words, but their actions, their behaviors, their social cues." A distant rumble of thunder made them all look up. 3 storm lords circled above their camp, curious but keeping their distance. "And so it begins," James said quietly. "Just like our ancestors facing their first wolves, we're at the start of something incredible. We just have to remember what humanity has always been good at, turning fearsome predators into allies." The team watched in awe as lightning danced across the sky, a display that would have sent other species running for their ships. But they stood their ground, ready to prove that humanity's primitive past might just be the key to an amazing future. 2 weeks had passed since the human team set up their base on HC 2187. Each day, they watched and recorded the storm lords' behavior, noting patterns that reminded them more and more of Earth's apex predators. The massive creatures had grown used to their presence, sometimes flying low over the camp to inspect them with curious eyes. James sat in the observation blind they'd built from local materials, making notes as he watched a group of storm lords teaching their young to hunt. The larger beings would create electromagnetic pulses that stunned the floating gas-filled creatures that served as their prey, while the younger ones practiced catching them. Just like lions teaching their cubs, he whispered into his recorder. The adults could easily catch the prey themselves, but they're deliberately making it easier for the young ones to learn. A sudden commotion from the north caught his attention. The hunting group scattered as dark clouds rolled in. Not the usual violet storms of the planet, but something darker, more dangerous. The team had learned to recognize these black storms as natural disasters, powerful enough to threaten even the storm lords. Through his binoculars, James spotted the cause of the panic. A young storm lord, smaller than the others, had gotten caught in the storm's powerful winds. Its wings beat frantically against the gale, but it was being pulled toward a massive rocky spire. Without thinking, James grabbed his emergency beacon and ran out of the blind. "Mary, Ben, we got a youngster in trouble." The team emerged from their shelters, watching in horror as the young creature fought against the wind. Its distress calls echoed across the plain, a sound like thunder mixed with a frightened animal's cry. "Look at the adults," Mary pointed. The larger storm lords were trying to reach the young one, but the black storm's winds were too powerful even for them. They circled helplessly, their own electromagnetic fields disrupted by the natural phenomenon. "The spire," James said, pointing to where the young one was being dragged. "If it hits those rocks at this speed." He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood. Even a storm lord might not survive such an impact. That's when Ben noticed something. The rock formation. It's creating a wind tunnel effect. If we can get to that ridge with the emergency flares, we might be able to create an updraft. James finished. "Mary, get the flares. Ben, help me with the climbing gear." The team moved fast, scaling the lower part of the ridge as the storm grew stronger. Above them, the young storm lord's cries became more desperate. The adults continued their attempts to reach it, but the wind patterns made it impossible. When they reached the right position, James and Ben set up the flares while Mary calculated wind patterns. The young storm lord was now dangerously close to the spire. "Now," Mary shouted. They launched the flares, creating a burst of heat that pushed against the cold storm winds. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, they saw the heat creating a rising air current, just enough to give the young storm lord a chance. The creature seemed to sense the change in air pressure. It adjusted its wings, catching the new updraft. With a powerful burst of its electromagnetic field, It finally broke free of the storm's pull, soaring away from the deadly rocks. The team cheered, but their celebration was cut short. The adult storm lords were approaching, their massive forms now focused entirely on the humans. Lightning crackled along their scales as they descended. "Nobody move," James said quietly. "This is a crucial moment. Let them come to their own conclusions." The largest storm lord landed on the ridge near them, its body crackling with energy. It lowered its huge head, bringing one giant eye level with the team. James forced himself to remain still, remembering everything he knew about predator behavior. Direct eye contact would be a challenge. Sudden movements could be seen as threatening. The creature studied them for what felt like hours. Then, to everyone's amazement, it did something unprecedented. It folded its wings and lowered its electromagnetic field, a universal sign among predators: non-aggression. The young storm lord they'd helped flew closer, now safely rejoined with its family group. It made a sound like gentle thunder, and to the team's astonishment, the adults responded with similar calls. "They're not just tolerating us now," Mary whispered. "They're acknowledging us. We helped one of their young. That means something to them." James nodded, barely daring to breathe. This was more than first contact. This was the beginning of trust, earned the same way humans had earned the trust of countless Earth species, by showing they could be allies rather than enemies. The morning sun cast deep purple shadows across the plains as James approached the feeding grounds. 3 weeks had passed since they'd helped save the young storm lord, and everything had changed. The massive creatures no longer just tolerated the humans, they actively acknowledged their presence. Behind him, Mary carried a simple device they'd built, a handheld tool that could generate small, harmless electromagnetic pulses, not as a weapon, but as an attempt at communication. "Remember," she said, checking the device one last time, "we're not trying to match their power, just showing we understand their language." The largest storm lord, the one they'd started calling Old Thunder, noticed their approach. It had become clear that this creature was the leader of the local group. Its scales shimmered with constant electrical activity as it watched them with intelligent eyes. James stopped at what they'd learned was a respectful distance. Then, just as they'd practiced, he activated the small device. It created a tiny pulse pattern, similar to the greeting signals they'd observed the storm lords using among themselves. Old Thunder's reaction was immediate. It tilted its massive head, clearly intrigued by this attempt at communication. Then, to everyone's amazement, it responded with its own pulse, greatly reduced in power, carefully modulated to not harm the humans. "They're not just intelligent," James whispered, making notes while trying to contain his excitement. "They're capable of understanding that we're smaller, more fragile. They're adjusting their behavior to accommodate us." Over the next few hours, they repeated this exchange several times. Each successful interaction brought Old Thunder a little closer. Other storm lords watched from above, their massive forms casting moving shadows across the plain. The breakthrough came during a hunting session. The team watched as Old Thunder demonstrated hunting techniques to younger storm lords. James noticed how the elder creature would look back at the humans occasionally, almost as if making sure they were paying attention. "It's teaching us too," Mary realized, "just like it teaches the young ones." That afternoon, they'd witnessed something extraordinary. Old Thunder caught one of the gas-filled prey creatures, but didn't eat it immediately. Instead, it brought the prey near their observation post and used a gentle electromagnetic pulse to keep it fresh. "It's sharing food," Ben said in awe, "just like wolves bringing meat back to their pack." James stepped forward slowly, remembering everything he knew about predator behavior. He made sure his movements were calm and deliberate as he approached the offered prey. Old Thunder watched, its enormous eyes tracking every motion. Using their tools, they took samples from the prey creature, making sure to show appreciation through their body language and small electromagnetic pulses. Old Thunder responded with a low rumble that they'd learned to recognize as approval. Later that day, As the team reviewed their footage, Emma called from the base camp. "You need to see this," she said, her voice excited. "The young one you saved. It's been copying us." The team rushed back to find the young Storm Lord hovering near their equipment storage. It was trying to manipulate small metal objects using its electromagnetic field, making them float and move in patterns similar to how the humans organize their tools. "It's learning from us," James said, watching in amazement. "Just as we're learning from them. This isn't just adaptation, it's cultural exchange." That evening, as the team sat in their camp reviewing the day's events, they heard a familiar thunderous call. Old Thunder had landed nearby, closer to their camp than ever before. In the fading light, its scales flickered with gentle pulses of electricity, creating patterns they'd never seen before. "Look at the others," Mary pointed to the sky. More Storm Lords were gathering, all producing similar light patterns. It was like watching a light show, but one with clear purpose and meaning. James checked their records frantically. This is new behavior. They're not just communicating. They're putting on a display for us, sharing something of their culture. The team watched in awe as the Storm Lords continued their performance, their electromagnetic fields creating beautiful patterns in the violet sky. It was a moment that proved what humans had known for thousands of years, that true connection with powerful creatures didn't come through force or technology, but through mutual respect and understanding. "You know what this reminds me of?" Ben said quietly, watching the display. "It's like when primitive humans would sit around a campfire with their first domesticated wolves, both species learning to trust each other, creating something entirely new together." James nodded, still taking notes even in the growing darkness. "That's exactly what this is, the beginning of a partnership that neither species could have imagined before. And it all started because we remembered our roots, our history with Earth's dangerous creatures." The members of the Galactic Council shifted uncomfortably in their seats as the massive form of Old Thunder hovered outside the observation dome. Lightning flickered across its scales, but there was no aggression in the display, only a calm, controlled power that made the scene even more impressive. Inside the dome, James stood beside Captain Emma as they presented their results to the stunned alien representatives. On the screens behind them played footage of humans working alongside Storm Lords, showing a level of cooperation that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "As you can see," Emma said, gesturing to the screens, "the Storm Lords aren't just tolerating our presence. They're actively working with us." The footage showed Storm Lords using their electromagnetic fields to lift heavy construction materials, helping the humans build permanent structures that could withstand the planet's harsh storms. Representative Cax's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. "This is unprecedented. They're actually assisting in construction." James nodded, unable to hide his smile. "They're intelligent beings who recognize mutual benefit. We helped protect their nesting grounds from the black storms by building deflector walls. In return, they help us establish our colony in ways that don't harm their territory." The ethereal being who had doubted them months ago floated forward. "And you achieved this without any advanced technology, without force fields or communication devices." "We used something more powerful," Emma replied. "Understanding, patience, respect." She pointed to Old Thunder outside the dome. Would anyone like to meet him properly? The council chamber erupted in nervous murmurs. Finally, Representative Cax stood. "You mean, go outside?" Near one of them, James led the way to the external platform. The alien representatives followed cautiously, many of their species seeing a Storm Lord up close for the first time without barriers or weapons between them. Old Thunder lowered its massive head, maintaining a respectful distance. "Watch," James said. He made a simple hand gesture they had developed together. Old Thunder responded by creating a gentle light show with its electromagnetic field, the patterns beautiful and clearly deliberate. "It's not just mimicking," Mary explained to the amazed council members. "It's communicating. They have their own complex language of electromagnetic pulses, body movements, and atmospheric manipulation. We didn't need translation devices. We just needed to learn their natural way of expression. As if to demonstrate, a young storm lord, the same one they had saved months ago, swooped down to join them. It had grown significantly but still moved with the playful energy of youth. To everyone's amazement, it carefully picked up a construction beam with its electromagnetic field and placed it exactly where it was needed in the ongoing building work. "They're teaching their young ones to work with us," James said proudly. "Just as we're teaching our children to understand them. This isn't just cooperation. It's the beginning of a shared culture." The council watched in stunned silence as humans and stormlords worked together on the planet's surface below. Construction teams coordinated with the massive beings to build structures that worked with the planet's natural storm patterns rather than against them. Young storm lords played with monitoring drones, practicing their electromagnetic control while helping survey the area. "Your primitive approach," the ethereal being admitted, "has achieved what our most advanced civilizations could not. Perhaps we have forgotten something important in our rush to advance." Emma smiled. "Not forgotten. Just took a different path. Humanity's history with dangerous creatures wasn't a weakness. It was preparation for this moment. We knew how to be patient, how to read body language, how to earn trust gradually." As the council members watched, more stormlords gathered in the sky above, creating a spectacular display of controlled lightning and storm patterns. It wasn't a show of force, but a celebration, a demonstration of the harmony possible between species willing to understand each other. "You know what's really remarkable?" James said quietly to Emma as they watched the display. "Other species see these creatures as monsters to be feared or fought. We saw them as potential friends, because that's what humanity has always done. We look at dangerous, powerful beings and think, maybe we can work together." The sun set on HC 2187, casting the violet clouds in deep shades of purple and gold. Storm lords soared through the sky, while humans worked below, the two species linked not by technology or force, but by something much older, mutual respect and understanding. It was living proof that sometimes the oldest solutions were still the best, and that humanity's so-called primitive past had prepared them perfectly for their future among the stars. Far below, a group of human children watched in wonder as young stormlords created small, controlled storm clouds for them, teaching them about electromagnetic fields through play. The sounds of human laughter mixed with thunder-like rumbles of stormlord joy, creating a symphony that represented everything they had achieved. "Only humanity," Representative Cax said, shaking his crystalline head in amazement, "would look at the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy and think to make friends with them." Emma laughed. "That's not just what humanity would do," she corrected him. "It's what humanity has always done, and we're pretty good at it."